start of the COVID-19 situation, we saw many organizations have to make a number of changes so that they could continue to operate. And so today's discussion that I want to welcome you to is around the area of business agility. We're going to be talking about what it means, what it looks like, and from our experiences, some of the best practices that we've seen and some ideas that we've seen on how you can make sure you are properly prepared in this area. I'm joined by some of our in-house experts, and to get the conversation going, why don't we just introduce ourselves and perhaps answer the question so we're all on the same starting point about what business agility means to you.
My name is Richard Buxton. I'm the Director of N4 Engage, which is Node4's collaboration business unit. For me, business agility is about being prepared for change. So being able to adapt quickly to changing demands on your business, whether that's to scale up or down or to work differently.
My name is Jordan Kirby. I'm the Technical Manager of N4 Engage. For me, business agility is the ability to react quickly and effectively to external and internal challenges that businesses face. It's not just about the technology, it's also about the people and the processes as well. You can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the people lined up and the processes lined up, it won't be much use.
I'm Simon Jadali. I look after the new business sales team at Node4. Business agility for me is really predicated on work is something that I do, no longer a place I go. So I think the greater demand for higher availability services on a wide variety of different devices to suit an individual's preference.
So thanks guys, great that you can join us today. And I suppose the good news is that we're starting from the same point. We obviously work in a technology industry that's full of acronyms and definitions that mean different things to different people. So we all seem to be starting from the same point when it comes to business agility. But it's all very well known what it is, but why is it important? I mean, we're seeing some things obviously through COVID, but I suppose as we answer this question, why is business agility important from a COVID perspective, but also from an ongoing perspective as well? So Richard, why don't you start us off with answering that question?
I guess it's about being prepared and making sure that you've got the tools and processes in place to enable quick changes to sort of unexpected things. COVID being one of them. I think we weren't expecting such a big change at quite a short period of time. So being able to change rapidly and having business continuity when these sort of events happen and allowing us to continue to operate.
I think also it's important that your business's ability to react is as seamless as it's possible to be. The greater confidence you've got in your ability to enact your business planning and to be agile, the greater confidence your customers will have around your ability to do business and to be continuous during an event such as COVID.
And did we see, I mean, from our experience, Simon, did we see any kind of customers, what from a customer perspective, why is it important for them?
Well, overnight, everyone became a remote worker. So you didn't just have pockets of the workforce that maybe had a requirement to be mobile, but the whole business followed that model overnight.
And I think, as with a lot of things, in some ways, a lot of organizations were taken a bit by surprise about how quickly they had to, adapt. And a lot of people can think they're prepared and ready and they've got the right business continuity plans, etc., in place. But I suppose what this threw up at the start is some organizations realized very quickly that we weren't ready for this. And okay, in one hand, it's a very extreme situation, but in other hands, you could say, well, it is a classic, disaster recovery, business continuity situation. So how does a business actually know, whether they're agile or not?
I think if you look from a technology perspective at a business, you need to sort of assess each layer and each dependency of it. If you talk with regard to collaboration solutions, a lot of customers, a lot of businesses have a telephone system on site. That doesn't mean it works remotely. Even if it does work remotely, it's probably not been tested to work remotely at the scale it's going to need to. You suddenly have to send all staff home. You've also got to then consider the dependencies of that working. You've got your office power, your office internet connection. If no one's in the office to make sure that keeps running, that needs to be more stable and more secure, and the more people are depending on it, and no one can be there to maintain it.
Did you
Yeah,
find?
I think one of the key ones is being able to scale. So as you're moving people around the business and you have more remote workers, as well as having sort of the prepared technology available so that you can actually send your people home, it's the scale of that is something that's really something that needs to be planned. So businesses that are using a lot of on-prem type solutions or using sort of legacy hardware applications, they're just not geared for that sort of agility to be able to work from anywhere, take all of your applications and just carry on using them regardless of where you are. So that ability is important to add and remove users, add and remove capacity, whether that's compute capacity, cloud storage, etc. Is really key, and that's one of the ways that we can tell how agile the business is how much of this technology they've adopted, how much of it is cloud based, and how much of it is in that sort of as a service type solutions.
We talk a good game in this in terms of, we talk about a lot of these services that allow businesses to be business agile. So I suppose I just want to pose the question: do we practice what we preach? It's from a Node 4 perspective. Did we adapt well? Do you think, Richard?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been using this sort of technology for a long time, and a lot of our workforce already work from home or work from multiple locations, or and do that flexibly. So lots of people would spend some time in an office and some time home or wherever. And so we use the products that we supply to our customers, and actually we adapted very well. I think we sort of overnight, as per most businesses, closed our offices and moved everyone working from home. And our people had the tools available to do that. And again, the back-end systems were designed to cope with that. They were all as a service type solutions or cloud-based, and really had no dependence on a physical office, which was key. As soon as you have an application that's dependent on a physical site being available, then that limits your agility. And certainly I think within Node 4 and N4 Engage, we were able to very quickly adapt to move people outside of the offices and continue working, as we are still doing today, even for this session.
Yeah.
And user feedback is key. That's a key way of identifying whether it's fit for purpose and it's meeting the demands of the business. And adoption rate, Richard's already touched on it, but that is that's essential, because if people aren't getting the functionality they want and the feature set they need out of the services, then ultimately they're going to look off grid. They're going to go and start using tools that aren't business grade, that aren't managed and reported by the business, and that obviously creates challenges elsewhere.
That also highlights the need for analytics, the ability to report upon the usage of the tools. It's all well and good rolling out tools, as you say, but if staff and colleagues are not using them, you may not know, and that will result in other applications being used that aren't controlled and aren't monitored as per corporate policy.
Yeah. Simon, just wondered, without disclosing obviously who the customers are, but from us as a service provider helping a number of customers through this, was there any sort of examples of customers you felt did it well, or maybe some of the challenges that they had putting into place some of these changes?
Yeah, definitely within the healthcare sector. So we've got a very wide healthcare vertical, and that includes people that operate blue light services, critical care service providers, where they need to maintain service to their customers as per SLA. In some instances, it's critical care, so the ability to continue to operate and have the ability to take calls and receive calls is a part of their absolute obligation, and we've seen some great adjustment. I say one of the things that we do notice is that there are certain scenarios where organizations will have more than one tool within their organization, particularly if they're a large organization. I'd say that those that have centralized services in the collaboration field probably made that adjustment better. than people that are running various point solutions, and maybe they'll have a solution for instant messaging and presence, and then they'll run a different solution for sort of conferencing services. That can sometimes create a bit of a busy landscape. That means there's more to factor in where they make that adjustment. But those that have sort of taken have a single strategy for collaboration, made the adjustment probably in a more seamless fashion.
And we've talked about the big change being people having to work from home, remote working. But do we think that we're going to see changes in the software and applications that people are using? Like, did we see a change at the start, and do we think it's actually going to be this? Is this going to be a permanent change going forward?
I think so, and certainly we've seen a bit of a sort of attitude shift from. I think most businesses that we've been dealing with over the last few years have very much sort of accepted that cloud-based working and sort of the centralization of services is the right thing to do, and have started adopting those at scale. But one of the things that I've certainly seen talking to customers is that they're very focused on having a small number of applications, as Simon mentioned earlier, a small number of applications that are sort of approved organisational applications. They've been tested, they've been gone through all the due diligence, and it's a simple user experience when they've got a small set of tools to use. I think what we've certainly seen over the last few months, and very recent with the pandemic, is a bit of a shift there, and we've gone very much towards what people do in their consumer lives when they're in their personal lives they're using mobile phones with lots of different applications on and lots of different ways of communicating with people, and they think nothing of having lots of applications. And I think we've seen some of that creeping into the business world because people have gone home, they've gone home to work, and if businesses haven't provided the tool set necessarily that lets them carry on working from home, they've found their own applications. So an example of that would be workers where they've gone home and they don't necessarily have access to a full collaboration suite. So they'll download some applications and they'll create groups, maybe a WhatsApp group, or they might use FaceTime or iMessage or one of these applications, and you end up with a bit of a fragmented landscape. Again, previously that was probably something that corporate IT departments sort of tried to steer away from, but I think there's become an acceptance that that's probably the way things will go, and a little bit more sort of tolerance to different applications doing the same sort of job. So definitely sort of seeing that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think there's a lot of sort of creep in the applications now that people are using. And I think it's going to be quite important that organisations don't let that creep get beyond their control. They're going to have to make sure that they can, where they haven't perhaps provided the tools, or perhaps people have found their own tools anyway, they need to make sure that that doesn't continue on forever, but lose control of that data and that communication. But there are tools out there now from a variety of vendors that will allow people to do everything they need to do with regard to collaborative working from home, whilst retaining that sort of business control of their data. And that's going to be an important thing after this COVID stuff dies down, to make sure that there are policies and controls in place to support that use.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of businesses are going to go back and have to almost audit what's been implemented over the last few months and sort of say, right, are the tools that our staff are using, are they ones that we as an organisation approve of? Are they secure? Do they integrate with things? And potentially adding some integration to some of these tools that people have implemented, themselves, and sort of bringing those into the corporate world. So I think there's going to be a real sort of exercise of consolidation and review of what's happened over the last few months, and try and bring it back into corporate control to some extent, but again with that flexibility that the tool set's probably going to expand a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say that if you take the sort of technology to one side for a moment, a lot of traditional customers, maybe they're traditional based on the markets they serve, regulated environments, regulated customers, sorry, are those where typically they'll have lots of office locations, and for the main, home working isn't something that is widely deployed. But the new norm that the pandemic will no doubt leave us with means that the ability to meet compliance, still continue to have their calls recorded, still continue to capture all of the information, in and out of the business will just become a larger overhead on the organisation, because they're going to have to adapt to people needing to work from a variety of different locations.
You just touched on it there, Simon, about the new normal. And I suppose none of us are sat here with a crystal ball. We don't know how long we're all going to have this emphasis on remote working, etc. But I think what we probably would all agree with is that this has had a long-standing permanent change on the way that a business operates, but more so the way that an organisation should be prepared for this type of scenario again. So, what I guess the question is, what do we think this new normal looks like going forwards?
I think for a lot of organisations where people aren't necessarily bound to a desk or bound to a physical location by their job, I think there won't be working from the office, or there won't be working from home. They'll just be working. It won't matter where you are. That's something we do internally a lot. It doesn't really matter where anyone is. You can always get hold of them. And I think that's going to become increasingly accepted as the natural way of working for most people. Obviously, there's people in roles that simply can't be done from home, and I think that will stay as is, obviously. But there are a good number of people that don't need to work from an office, and I think they probably won't want to necessarily work from an office all the time. I think there's a lot then to be done with regard to potentially savings on office space. Office space is incredibly expensive, and there's some good examples in the last few years, Cisco being one of them, where they effectively rented out different floors in their offices, but they don't need them anymore because staff are more set working from home. It's a large cost saving there for a business. There's also then flexibility, especially, we're all on lockdown with COVID. We've all had, well, a lot of us have had childcare concerns and to deal with small children running around, and that's led to a flexibility in working hours, and it's had to lead to a certain amount of trust. I think potentially there are some people out there, some organisations that wouldn't have necessarily trusted their staff to work from home, perhaps due to concerns over them not doing the work or being distracted. And I suspect that this COVID crisis has caused people to work out how they can work from home. It is a difficult thing to do if you've not done it before. I think it will also then endear their employers with some trust to allow them to be a bit more flexible, to do the school run, do those sort of things without worrying that they're not there at 9 o'clock in front of their computer.
Yeah. And I think we're also going to see a rise. I mentioned already around the sort of the adoption of tools, but I think obviously the rise in cloud and as a service adoption, we've seen that anyway over a period of time. But I think this will escalate even further. We've almost all customers that we deal with are already sort of adopted cloud technology or working in that way, or certainly towards that way. But I think what we're finding is that, or what we will certainly see, is that everyone is now going to be looking to remove legacy, removing any technology that's going to tie them to locations. So the new normal is going to be much of what we've seen, cloud-based, flexible solutions that basically mean we can work from anywhere. And as Jordan says, having flexibility in scale, in location, and that's going to become the norm.
I think it's one of the points I made near the beginning, that the mobile working now applies to the whole workforce. Video will certainly be far more commonplace. I think there's maybe some adjustment culturally has been made even within our business, where certain individuals or teams don't like the use of video and use of video within calls. But now we're all out of the office. I think that barrier sort of come down in terms of use of video, and I think just generally our customers will need to operate their collaboration requirements far more on the shop floor than they've ever done before, whether that be working within their sort of customer communities, going to various sites where travel is required and making the most of that visit. So having all of their office services that they would normally get when they're in their own individual permanent site, they're expected to take with them on their mobile device, whether it be their laptop or another device that they may choose to use.
We've recognised for some time the importance of collaboration solutions, and it's been really evidenced obviously through this COVID-19 situation, and it's something that is known for we've always done, but we felt we needed to give it obviously greater focus, which is why we set up N4 Engage, which is our collaboration business, and which Richard leads. And I suppose just as we sort of come to a close, all these discussions, we want to make it informative and interesting. We don't want to do sales pitches, but I guess it might be just helpful, Richard, maybe just talk about some of the ways as N4 Engage we are helping customers and can help customers adapt to this new normal that we've just talked about.
Yeah, so we're, as you'd expect, very busy talking to customers at the moment that either didn't fully implement some of the tools we talked about, or hadn't even started that journey. And we're doing lots of things really. So one of the key ones we're doing is auditing what businesses are doing. So we spend a lot of time talking to customers and looking at what tools are being implemented, what they had prior to the pandemic, and what in their normal business they'd planned for. So we've been looking at their tool sets previous and also what they're doing now. And obviously we've seen a bit of a change, as we mentioned earlier on, in that sort of that landscape. So yeah, spend a lot of time auditing what people are doing and also talking to them about the art of the possible. So whether that's things like meeting solutions where they need video meeting solutions. A lot of companies have used some of that, but they haven't widely adopted it. We're talking to a lot of customers around sort of large scale meetings where they want to have like events that they would have hosted in person and now they can't. So they want to host whether that's an all hands meeting or even an awards ceremony, or there's various scenarios that we're talking to customers about where now they have to adapt, and we're talking to them about those tools that will deliver it. And then obviously this shift from desk-based working to home-based working, so I think collaboration tools such as instant messaging, presence, those tools have been around for a long time, but actually people now using them and realizing what you can do with these tools. So collaborative working, integration into the systems, those sort of things. So yeah, a lot of our time at the moment is initially was helping people with that influx of work that was, let's get everybody and move them so they're working from home. So obviously that was a very busy period for our teams to help our customers get on board with that. And now people have been doing that for a bit of time. They're now asking us to let's review it and let's see what else we can do to make things a little bit smoother now whilst people are still working from home, but also to be agile for the future. What's next, and even if when we do get back to some form of normality, what's the next event that will occur that means that business needs to be agile. So again, there's lots of conversations with lots of different customers going on, and again, it's all about reviewing previous adoption and current technology and trying to find the way forward.
There's been quite a bit of knee-jerk reaction. People have obviously had to make decisions quickly. You've got businesses that have been sort of dipping their toe in the water. But I think now it's about taking stock, making sure that the deployment of technology is very joined up, just to maximise user experience and adoption rate, and to ensure that regardless of where people are working, that they're productive and they're always available as far as availability of systems, and each individual respective business can adhere to whatever sort of compliance or governance, whether that be market governance or internal governance, that they need to meet.
That's an important point there, because you've now got an increased dependency upon these collaboration solutions. Before, if your phone didn't work and you want to speak to a colleague, you could probably just stand up and walk through to the next room. You now simply can't do that. And even after this, even if we're back to some sort of normality, there will be more people working from home. So I think the increased dependence on these collaboration solutions will highlight the need for resiliency. I think it's also important that people don't, as you said, some people have knee-jerk reactions, they put these solutions in. And I think it's important that people do obviously make sure they're compliant, but also make sure they don't then remove these from their workforce once normality is resumed. These systems need to be integrated back into the business for compliance, for business process, and in a large case for telephony as well. A lot of organizations have put these instant messaging chat solutions in without actually integrating the telephony. And I think that's going to be a key piece of what we spend time doing with our customers over the coming months.
Great. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a good conversation. I think even just listening to it, I suppose we could almost redefine business agility as business flexibility. I think that's the key thing that's coming out, that organizations need to be flexible, whether that be with the technology they're using, but also the hours people work in the childcare thing that we talked about before. And technology can absolutely, as we've seen through this situation, be an enabler to help that start and continue. So we'd love to keep the conversation going. If you would like to engage with us, be it through to ask some questions or to find out more, or just see how we can help you, there'll be some links coming up. But other than that, thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you soon.